Senior congressional correspondent Rachel Scott joins me now from Miami, along with Chief Washington correspondent Jonathan Karl, ABC News executive editorial producer John Santucci, ABC News deputy political director Avery Harper, and ABC News contributor Asha Rangappa, attorney and former FBI agent. Rachel, I want to start with you. What's the scene like there at the courthouse right now?
Well, Diane, what we are about to witness in a couple of hours will be unlike any other moment in American history. A former president of the United States walking into a federal courthouse facing federal criminal charges. This is completely unprecedented. And so out here, you, of course, have a large amount of media gathered outside of this federal courthouse. You have a few small groups of Trump supporters who have gathered here to show their support for the former president. We know that Trump was calling on his supporters to rally and protest, and that is something that Miami says that they're completely ready for today. They're ready for a crowd anywhere from 5,000 to 50,000, but so far it's only been small groups of those supporters, Diane.
John, what are you hearing from former President Trump's inner circle ahead of this arraignment?
Well, they've been spending the last 24 hours aggressively trying to find expanded legal counsel. That has been the hunt right now. You'll recall on Friday, 2 of his attorneys resigned just hours before this indictment was unsealed. So part of the reason they went down to Florida a day early was to do in-person interviews. I'm told they did several yesterday. They have a few more attorneys coming by Doral this morning before he heads into court. He's described to me as Diane as having fits of anger. He's still angry about this. He's been consuming coverage throughout the weekend, including today, wants to get into that courtroom and wants to get things moving forward.
And Jonathan, given the details in the indictment, does this leave any room for Trump's attorneys to be able to argue that this was a mistake or a misunderstanding of some kind?
I think that's going to be a stretch. This is a very detailed indictment. This is an indictment that relies heavily on Trump's own words. It relies on the detailed notes of one of his attorneys. It relies on the text messages and photographic images in one of his closest aides' cell phone. This is not something he can just say, look, I mistakenly took, highly classified information on America's nuclear codes to Mar-a-Lago, and I meant to turn them over when they asked for them, but they were in the bathroom. I mean, they were in the bathroom, perhaps, but no, this is a very damning set of facts, and will be a difficult case for the former president.
Now, Asha, Trump and his allies say that this is a political weaponization of the federal government. Is there evidence of that?
Well, this is what our justice system is for. The indictment had to be issued by a grand jury. They're going to have to go to a court and have a trial in front of a jury as well. So listen, if this is a weaponization of government, then our process will be able to weed it out. As Jonathan said, this looks like a case where there are a lot of receipts based on actual hard evidence, and that is not a weaponization. And I don't think that it is even controversial or debatable that this really presented a threat to our national security.
Now, Avery, this indictment is forcing Trump's political opponents to have to talk about him on the campaign trail. How is this impacting the race, and could it actually help him?
Right. Well, amid these indictments, Trump really does take up all the oxygen in the room, and it does force each and every one of these candidates to address him. So far, we've seen more of the candidates pointing fingers of blame at the justice system, rather at former President Trump for these alleged actions. But I am watching closely because I wonder if there is a tide turning with more of these candidates willing to speak out against Trump on this. We saw Nikki Haley change her tune on this, saying that if these allegations are true, that this says that former President Trump was incredibly reckless. But at the same time, many of these candidates really cannot afford to completely alienate Trump supporters who could be convinced to vote otherwise because they are trying to chart their path to the nomination.
Rachel, former President Trump is not expected to be handcuffed, no mugshots. Why is that, and what can we expect to see?
Yeah, well, really, that is out of courtesy of the office. Again, he is still a former president who is now a criminal defendant. So here's what we can expect to see. We will see the former president leave in a motorcade from his golf club in Doral. He will make his way here to the courthouse here in Miami. It's unclear if we will even see the former president walk through this building. It's rather likely that he will possibly enter underground. And then from there are no cameras inside of this courthouse behind me. There's a select few members of the public and the media who will be allowed inside that courtroom, maybe into an overflow area that will be seeing exactly what is happening inside. side. And then, of course, the former president will then leave. We know he's expected to return back to New Jersey at his golf club in Bedminster, where he'll be delivering remarks later this evening to supporters. But the gravity of this moment cannot be lost here. This is something that even Donald Trump does not want. The former president knows that his approval ratings have gone up. He even says even if he gets a bump in the polls, he says regardless, this is something that he never wanted to see. He never wanted to be indicted, Diane.
And Jonathan, a magistrate judge will handle the arraignment today, but a Trump appointee, Judge Aileen Cannon, is the one overseeing this case. Now, she's the same judge that assigned a special master to oversee this case earlier in the process. What else do we know about her?
Well, look, she's one of the she's the judge that handed the Trump team one of their few legal victories through the course of these proceedings, but she was overturned by the circuit court. She's a Trump appointee. You couldn't imagine a more favorable choice from the Trump perspective to oversee this case. But I think that's actually probably a good thing in terms of establishing, as John Roberts once said during the 2016 campaign when Trump compared about an Obama judge giving a negative ruling on a case involving his businesses. Roberts came out and said there are no Obama judges, there are no Bush judges, there are no Clinton judges, there are judges. We have a system of justice that is not, that is not political. It depends on the rule of law. So we'll see how she performs in this. She was overturned by the circuit court. I imagine that will affect how she doesn't want to get overturned again. It's if you you can imagine what the Trump team did, what the former president would be doing if it had been a judge that had been appointed by Barack Obama. They would be instantly doing what they're doing in New York. Yeah. So they can't do that with Aileen Cannon. And again, that's probably a good thing in terms of establishing credibility for this case in the eyes of a lot of people out there who believe that Trump is being politically prosecuted.
And John, Trump aide Walt Nauta is also charged in this case. How significant are the charges against him?
It's not 37 counts. Donald Trump got the bigger number on this one, but nevertheless significant. These are still federal charges. These are still removing classified information. And, from all of our understanding, they are still hand in hand. We saw the images over the weekend, Nauta out on the campaign trail with Donald Trump by his side. Our understanding is that Nauta is going to be in that motorcade with Trump today, with all of their attorneys. They are going to walk together into court, sit at that table right next to each other.
Asha, in terms of motive, what does the prosecution, if anything, have to prove on that front?
The indictment, I don't think, really lays out that part of the story. It does show that President Trump liked to kind of wave some of these things around. There was some ego involved, maybe a sense that he could show that he was very important, that he had these, important secrets that he couldn't share. But I don't know if the Department of Justice might have other information, whether he wanted to use these secrets as leverage, if there was any financial incentive for them. Those would be incredibly damning to be presented if it comes out later on in the course of this case.
And John Carl, what are you watching for today as we kind of learn more and see this arraignment?
Well, Trump has turned all of this into the centerpiece of his campaign. If you think of the very first speech that he gave, the very first rally after he announced he was running, was in Waco, Texas, and he outlined a situation where making the prosecution of him the same as the prosecution of all of his supporters. He basically said they are coming for me because they really want you. It's quite a stretch. I mean, as far as I know, when I've been to a lot of Trump rallies, I don't see a lot of people that took highly classified documents and then refused to turn them back to the government. I don't see people that made hush money payments to a porn star. It's a stretch, but that's what he has told his supporters. So there's a lot of bravado. I think we'll hear that tonight. But what I'm looking for, if we get any sense of how he is before this magistrate judge, what I saw and what John, I know you saw in New York, is Trump, despite the bravado and despite the theme of his campaign, I am your retribution, we're going to get our revenge against these people, he's actually freaked out by this.
Yes.
He's extremely, he seemed, I never use this word with Donald Trump very much, but he seemed nervous in New York. And I want to see if I get a sense of that as he goes before a case that's much more serious, I believe, than the one in New York.
I think that image from court, we don't have cameras in this courtroom, unfortunately, but that image we saw in Manhattan of Donald Trump sitting there, looking down, looking around. Remember, a line that I know struck you, because you and I spoke about it afterwards, to have a judge say to Donald Trump, can you repeat yourself? When have you ever thought Donald Trump would be soft-spoken? Ever. That just does not happen. And I think that's what we're going to see. You know, Donald Trump, for all of the brash apparatus we see of him on the campaign trail, that's not going to be the guy in court.
He's freaked out by this, and he's obsessed with it.
All right. Jonathan Karl, John Santucci, Rachel Scott, Avery Harper, Asha Rangappa, thank you all.
Hi, everyone. George Stephanopoulos here. Thanks for checking out the ABC News YouTube channel. If you'd like to get more videos, show highlights, and watch live event coverage, click on the right over here to subscribe to our channel. And don't forget to download the ABC News app for breaking news alerts. Thanks for watching.